every comic say that thing where they're the funniest person in Australia, or they should quit. So, and that can be within 2 nights of each other. So you can go out on a Friday night and be like, man, I nailed that tonight, I'm hilarious. And then the next night you'd be like, oh my God, I should stop doing this. I'm never going to get a laugh ever again. But then one of the things as well is that you get back on the horse and it kind of, you're not defined by your last gig.
Welcome to the Funny in Failure podcast, a podcast that celebrates failure and shines the light on the emotional side of comedy, with yours truly, Michael Kahan. Today I was privileged to chat with Michael Chamberlin, who is a veteran of the Australian comedy scene. He's also a writer, actor, podcaster and stand-up comedian. Beginning his comedy career in the year 2000, Michael has been the host, writer and producer of The Mansion, a fictional news show for the Comedy Channel, a cast member and writer for Ten's Network's popular sketch comedy series skitHOUSE, which happens to be my favourite Australian comedy show. He's also been seen on Rove Live, Spicks Specks, Standup, and had a weekly comedy segment on Today. He was also the head writer of the popular TV show Tonightly with Tom Ballard, and format creator and writer of the show The Beep Test on Fox Footy. Before we get into the chat, just a heads up, the audio quality is getting better with each podcast. I've had a few issues, but have hired and spoken to the right people, and after this podcast you'll hear crisper quality. I've also bought new recording equipment, and from about podcast 10 onwards you'll notice a huge difference in the sound quality, which I'm really excited about. This little segment is actually recorded with it. I've had a few people asking when the podcast will be up. I recommend either liking the Funny in Failure page on either Insta or Facebook, or simply subscribe on SoundCloud, iTunes or Spotify to keep up to date with the latest information regarding the podcast. It will usually be up after work hours every Monday, Melbourne, Australia time. Anyway, let's get into it. Thank you so much for chatting with me today.
No dramas, man.
Now, I've got a pretty serious question. If you're on Tinder, what would your bio say about you?
That I'm too old to be on Tinder.
Or what about
I've never tried the online dating thing. Do you do online dating thing?
I have dabbled in it.
Yeah, sure. I've never tried it. The only time I've had experience with Tinder is that a mate of mine, just gave me, like, he said he's on it, and he said I don't use it, but I just have it, and so my friend and I just swiped through a bunch of people while it was kind of for fun, kind of picking and choosing, and that was kind of cool. We felt pretty proud because we got a couple of matches while we're online. But if I was on Tinder, it would be give up, mate. My thing about, if I was on an online dating thing, I think my thing would be, I'd be just frightened that my mates would find it and then just use the photos to, like, I've got a mate who, he appeared in the Age newspaper, probably 10 years ago, it was a Valentine's Day thing, and there was a picture of him in a nice suit holding a rose, and, I still send that photo to him to make fun of him. So I don't want anyone getting my pictures.
Fair enough. Well, I guess what are friends for?
You gotta keep a record on them.
So how did you first get started on your comedy journey? Like, where did it all begin for you?
I'm a stand-up, so my first thing was doing stand-up, and it was, I must say, it was basically, I had a few friends who did it, and I thought to myself, I could do that. And so I gave it a crack, and, some would say that I still can't do it, but at least there we go. So essentially I just kind of had mates who did it, and they kind of got caught up in that world. Yeah, and stand-up was something I really enjoyed when I was younger. Like, when it was on TV, I'd always enjoy watching it and thought it was pretty cool. But never actually thought that I would actually do it. I don't think you even thought there was even a way you could do it, but that's the thing about stand-up as well also. Your first gig, essentially one of the things to stand-up is just asking people for a gig. So you go, can I have a gig? And they go, yeah, alright, sure.
Was it a hard process to do that?
This one was actually, my first gig was a Raw Comedy, gig. So that's the Melbourne International Comedy Festival, have their, national comp of Raw Comedy, where, it's, open micers. I think maybe it's like you can't have made like $500 or something from comedy. But yeah, It was a far smaller competition back then. Now they get thousands upon thousands of people entering. And so I just did a gig somewhere in Melbourne. And that was it.
How did you go, or how did you feel doing that for the first time?
I think I felt alright. Let me think. Oh no, I tell you what, actually I've forgotten about this. I actually did it because I had a friend who wanted to do it. Yeah, actually I had a friend who wanted to do it. And then she kind of, I used the word chickened out, but that's not the word for it. She decided not to do it. And so, she asked me to write a few jokes for it. Yeah, there we go. And so, yeah, and then I just kind of did the jokes that I had written. Yeah.
Oh, so were you writing jokes before that?
Well, no, not really, no. This is a story that I have not thought about in years, yeah. So she just asked me to write a few jokes. I don't think I even knew what raw comedy was. And then eventually, she didn't do it, and so I did it, in her place, I suppose.
And what got her to get you to write it, and I guess not her to write her own jokes?
I'm not sure, actually. I've known her for a while. Maybe she thought it was funny. I don't know. I suppose I'd kind of written things, I don't know, I suppose at uni and the like, or, that's a good question. This is actually genuinely a story I haven't thought about in years and years and years. I reckon I've even done interviews where they've said, tell us about your first gig, and I had not brought this up at all, because I had completely forgotten about it.
I'm glad to bring that up for you.
Yeah. If you ever see anything where it says, how'd you get into comedy? It's a complete lie. Because I've completely forgotten.
And at school or at university, were you known as like the funny guy?
No, I don't think so. Like, I would try and be funny, I suppose, but, I don't really know who kind of is known as the funny person.
Like the class clown or anything?
No, not that kind of stuff. No, I wasn't kind of acting out, trying to get attention or anything like that. Those people are usually douches.
Yeah, fair. And did you study, you mentioned that you studied, at university? Was that?
Yeah, I did arts basically, yeah. And did a kind of writing thing for a year as well. It was obviously an interest. But it was also that probably, just kept me a student for a bit longer and get cheaper movie tickets.
So is that just more a hobby? Was there an aim of doing something else? Did you know what you wanted to do?
No, I was a bit floating around. Like, that's one of the reasons kind of why I did arts, because it was kind of like, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. Yep. So I thought that would be a bit of a stopgap and maybe I could figure it out. And I don't know. I think there was a time, I was on a show, got a gig on a show called skitHOUSE years ago. And so just,
that's my favorite show.
How old are you?
About that. So I'm 25.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, it usually sits in the sweet spot for people about that age. That's funny. I think a few months before that, I was maybe thinking about going and doing a teaching degree or something. I was kind of had a half an idea of that in my head. But then got that job, and that kind of went for about 2 years.
How did you get into, because skitHOUSE is more like skits, so were you doing some form of training towards that?
Not so much. I'd kind of made stuff with friends, made skits with our friends and the like.
Yep.
And I suppose people who had seen that probably saw, people who were kind of making that probably saw that. Had a little bit of experience with making kind of sketch stuff.
Did you apply for a job, or did someone knock on your door and say, here's a gig, how would you like to do it?
Yeah, it was that. It was, I think they were looking for a male in their early 20s to come fill out the cast. And also I kind of just called people up. But also if I had to audition, I don't think I got it because I'm a horrible actor. I'm a really bad actor.
Okay.
I can play myself looking confused. But apart from that, I have no range whatsoever.
And have you done any form of acting training?
No. I think that might be I've probably acted a few times in maybe commercials or something like that.
Yeah.
Apart from that, not much acting at all. Because I'm horrible at it.
And what was the experience of being on TV? Because it was a pretty popular show. Well, I thought it was at least.
Yeah, I think we went about 3 seasons, and that's pretty good enough. It's funny, man, because there are a few sketch shows floating around at the minute, or people wanting to make them, or are making them, and it's interesting. I don't think I know where to begin, kind of writing sketches anymore. I'd have to have a good long think about it. because they are tricky. They are very tricky, actually, to make good. And also, but not that you can't do that, but it's just it's hard yakka because there is I think there's someone wrote that there are only 7 different types of sketches that you can do.
In general, or just on TV, or?
Yeah, no, just in general. Like they kind of broke down like the different rules, and it's like I can't remember what they are now, but it's like something out of place. So it's an office scenario where there's a knight from the round table. That shouldn't be there. And yeah, so he kind of broke down the kind of the different tropes. But yeah, they are tricky to do. But yeah, no, that's funny. It's funny. Every now and then I'll get people to say, talk about that show, and they're usually about your age group. Yeah, it's usually kind of sweet spot of about people who are about 13 or so when it was on.
Yeah, I assume.
Yeah, a little younger, yeah.
What were some of the highs that you experienced during skitHOUSE and being on TV?
Got to meet Delta Goodrem.
Oh, wow, okay.
Got free tickets to the Australian Idol concert. No, that was funny. I'll tell you what, we went, because Idol was on Channel 10 at the minute, and that was like the most massive thing in the world. So I think a bunch of us managed to snaggle a bunch of tickets to like their concert at Rod Laver Arena, and it was seriously fucking mental. Like, I don't think I've ever heard anything as loud as that in my life, and I've been to a million, footy matches and the like. But yeah, to hear that screaming when Gus Sebastian comes out and sings his hit. I
can imagine.
But yeah, no, it was hard yakka. Like, I mean, I must say I really focused on the writing then by the fact that, because I couldn't act, and I was like, well, I should pull my weight in other ways. So yeah, I definitely put a whole bunch of time into writing and the like, just to make sure that, I could, pull my weight.
And what was it like working with the team? Because there's some pretty high profile Australian comedians that did that.
Yeah, no, they were all cool. Yeah, we all got on. We all, and that's one of the things as well, like, for sketch shows, I reckon, is that you kind of need a bunch of people who are kind of on the same page. So, cause yeah, the cast kind of wrote the bulk of it, I suppose, as well. And people would team up and do things together. But yeah, I think you need, particularly with sketch show, you need people kind of, who are a bit of a unit. And I think we all knew each other. I think maybe there's like 2 people I didn't know before we began, of about 8.
Okay, wow.
But
and
yeah,
how did you meet everyone before?
Just through stand-up. So yeah, so the majority were live performers. Well, all live performers, and then it's like, but they were the ones I knew were on the stand-up circuit. So, that's how we all got to know each other.
And, pretty obvious question. How did you feel when the show was cancelled or renewed? I'm not even sure, or wasn't renewed. Why it didn't go back onto air? I was devastated.
I can't remember actually specifically. I feel like that Channel 10 moved the money into a very early production of X Factor, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
That I think might have been hosted by, I don't even know who. But yeah, which I think then fell over, very quickly. And then obviously X Factor came back and was a big hit. But I think that's what happened initially. They kind of just moved the money around. And I'm presuming also, it's funny though, like you look at the ratings nowadays, like, the top 20 shows were all rating over 1 million, people back then. And now, you're doing a song and dance and people get 1 million people watching.
Yeah, it's a different world now.
Mm.
But how did you actually feel when you got that news?
Oh, I don't think I wasn't particularly fussed, I don't believe. I think it was it kind of reached its, general, conclusion. Yeah, it's interesting. I've never worked on a show that's been kind of yanked off air, like after 3 episodes or so. So,
so was it like
been lucky in that regard.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
it kind of reached its end, yeah. Probably went off on a break and, I reckon I probably went overseas and spent too much money thinking I was going to come back to a job and earn that money again.
Where would you describe skitHOUSE relative to your career? Like if it was a ladder or a pyramid?
It would be the bottom just by the fact it was the first thing I did. And I don't mean that in disregard or anything, but it's like, that kind of learning experience. And, I felt at the time it was a little bit like a comedy kind of university by the fact that I was hanging around funny people who had done stuff before as well. And just kind of learning from them and learning how to do things.
Oh, awesome! So you would have learned a lot comedically.
Yeah, definitely. And also just about the production elements as well, just what it takes to make a show like that.
Okay. I know we talked about this before, but do you feel compelled to make people laugh? I don't know, you're at a party and you're introduced as a comedian. Do you feel any form of pressure?
That's the worst. There was a girl I went out with a long time ago, and I saw her at the supermarket, with her current flame, I imagine. I suppose they're still together. And I found it very funny because I just went up to say g'day to her, and she got so incredibly flustered. And she went, "Oh, but Michael, this is, I'll call him Fred. This is Fred. Michael's a comedian." And I was like, that is the weirdest introduction I've ever had from anyone ever. And I was like, dude, calm down. It's fine. It's alright. But yeah, I probably don't love it if people introduce me as a comedian. Just by the fact, that kind of gives an expectation. People ask, I usually say writer, just by the fact that's a simpler thing. And then they say, what do you write? And then you go comedy, and then you blah, 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 blah. You're into that. But yeah, like if I was filling out a form, I'd just put writer, just by the fact it's simpler, and no one will really blink.
You mentioned when you were performing in the earlier days that you met all these cool comedians and then you formed skitHOUSE. Prior to, I guess, that success, what was your mindset when you were performing and I guess the joke fell flat?
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, that still happens today. I mean, I'm at the stage now where I'm trying to, go out and kind of write new material by the fact I've just come off being head writer on a show for Tonightly, so that kind of took up 11 months of my life, and so I'm at the stage now where I'm trying to think up new gear and the like. So the reality is with stand-up is that it's one of those things, and you know this yourself, it's where one of the things where you find out if it's funny on the job. There's really no way to, you may think you have the joke and then get out there and you go, oh, wait a second, that had all the hallmarks of a joke. So yeah, it's one of those rare professions where you only find out if it's any good while you're actually, when you're doing it.
And when it does actually fail, what emotions run through your mind?
You quickly move on. I'm alright now. Like, if I bomb, there's usually, you can figure out a reason for it, like in terms of, you go, okay, that was like 5 minutes of new gear, that's all fine. And also, it's more the thing where, the thing you don't want to do is bomb when there's an expectation that you're not going to, or you're getting paid a decent amount to do something, and there's a guy eating chicken in the front table and he's looking at you weird. Those ones. Well, I suppose the gigs I kind of put pressure on myself for is either, these are, where you want to do well, whether it be a big gig or there's even someone in the audience that you want to think that you had a good gig. And that could be, from a professional person or a personal person. So, there's one time I remember doing a gig, and it must have been summer, and I wore thongs, and it's the only time I've worn thongs on stage because the crowd was dead as, and just because I wasn't getting many laughs, and my thing I focus on the most is the flip flop of my thongs, and I was like, okay, you're not wearing thongs on stage ever again.
Are you able to kind of bounce back quickly from, I guess, a more rough show?
Yeah, I reckon. Yeah, you can get over that kind of stuff a lot quicker nowadays. Yeah.
And was it more challenging?
But again, bombs are you can kind of fall back on things change tact if kind of things aren't going your way. Just kind of head back to older material that can kind of get you by.
So you don't beat yourself up. You don't go back home and have those sleepless nights. And
I don't think I have for a while. I can't remember the last time. But yeah, it's that funny thing. It's like, I remember ages ago, and it's that thing of, people would bomb, and it's like, I remember a friend coming home, and, I said, how was the gig? And she had a bottle of vodka. And it was like, that's either really good or it's really bad.
Do you have any moments like that?
Oh, I'm sure I have in the past. Yeah, I have in the past, but I can't remember one of recent times, I suppose.
And I guess in the past, because it's always interesting to hear, I guess, the progress from the start to the end and your mindset around it. Did that stuff really bother you, or?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, I think every comic's had that thing. Every comic's had that thing where they're the funniest person in Australia, or they should quit. So, and that can be within 2 nights of each other. So you can go out on a Friday night and be like, man, I nailed that tonight, I'm hilarious. And then the next night you'd be like, oh my God, I should stop doing this. I'm never going to get a laugh ever again. But then one of the things as well is that you get back on the horse and it kind of, you're not defined by your last gig. That makes sense?
Yeah. What actually makes you continue with comedy when you're feeling that way? What made you actually?
Because I'm now in it long enough. I'm 41 years old and I have no discernible skills otherwise. So I'm in it for the long haul. No. I mean, it's that kind of thing. I have had people who kind of have had, I know people who've had, horrendous gigs and, or even just one mate who just said he kind of did a gig and it felt perfectly fine, but he also just didn't relate to himself doing that material. And he said, by the time he'd walked home, he was no longer a comedian, and he kind of just made the decision I'm just not feeling this anymore. But I mean, he'd been doing it for a long time, so it wasn't like an overnight thing. But yeah, I mean, I think the people who kind of stopped doing it, you kind of just, realize that maybe there are other skills that you might be, better at.
So is that what kind of motivates you to continue? Was it more about what else am I going to do, or is it something you actually get passion from? Is it something you enjoy?
Yeah, for sure. No, it's definitely that thing of getting good at it too. You can always get better as a comic, I reckon.
Yep.
It's like anything, is you get better and try and get better. And so, yeah, I'd say I just want to kind of do it as long as I can try and attempt to get good at it. And that can be either, through the stand-up or through writing stuff or, ticking off various genres of writing as well. So that. Well, I mean, that's the thing at the minute, I've kind of, in terms of my writing stuff, I've kind of written for all different types of shows, and the only thing I haven't written for is a narrative. So, I've done topical things everywhere, and all different types, from sports shows to sketch shows to variety shows, so it's kind of things like that. That's the kind of one, last thing, kind of, genre I'd like to tackle. But awesome. Yeah, and also stand-up's just a case of, getting as good as you can at it.
Right. Well, it's pretty impressive to, I guess, when you're feeling pretty low, potentially having a few bad gigs and actually being able to, continue with stand-up. Is there anything you fear? Stand-up's often described as one of the scariest things to do. Yeah,
it's funny that, because people go, oh yeah, that's terrifying. But it's not that really. It's not really, and it's also one of those things where, you just have to do it a bunch. I was talking to a friend the other day and she was saying, she's done a bit of stand-up and performing. She said, she's not comfortable kind of, getting up there. But also at the same time, it's like, the more she would do it, the more she would get comfortable. So, it's a case of anything. People are terrified of public speaking in the first place, and then add on top of that the expectation that you're going to make them laugh. Yeah, obviously that is a daunting prospect, but it's also the thing of, it's just a case of thing of, you just got to keep on doing it before you become, comfortable, and you can do it in a theatre, and then you can do it standing on a crate at a footy club.
Do you still get nervous?
Yeah, I think it would probably depend more upon what the gig actually is. There are some gigs where you kind of know what you're going to do, and you know what stuff that's worked before in the past. But yeah, I think it's also important to get a bit edgy, before a gig, just kind of keep you on your toes. The worst thing you do is if you get cocky, that's when you're gonna bomb. So you should have a bit of anxiety to yourself.
And has that happened many times?
It's that thing. It's just that thing. If you kind of if you're not paying attention, you got to kind of make sure you go over your stuff and keep on your toes, because if you go out there not being prepared, or that's when things are going to fall apart.
Okay. And you talked about feedback. So when you're doing a stand-up, right there and then how the audience is feeling generally. But you've also, as you said, you've been a writer and you've been on TV. What's the feedback like for you after filming those things? Do you look at the newspaper? Are you online?
I don't try to kind of look at reviews and like too much, just by the fact, when I say too much, that implies that I do a bit. Maybe I do. No, in terms of my own stand-up, I don't think I've read a review of myself for probably, I don't know, decade or something.
Yep.
And then in terms of like, actually it's probably the first time I've done this on a show, but like just with, just coming off Tonightly, like, I would check through Twitter, like when the show was on and stuff, or after the show was on, just to see what people were thinking. But yeah, I mean, feedback from stand-up, I usually record most of my gigs, and the feedback you get is you go, nah man, they laughed more than that. The recording never sounds like it, like you remember. But yeah, I suppose I don't go searching for, individual feedback or, I mean also, in this online world, it's people going, this is the worst thing ever, or this is the best thing ever. There's no middle ground, if you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No one's getting onto social media and saying, I have no opinion on this.
And how do you find the negative feedback?
That's okay. Funny. Yeah, funny most of the times. Yeah. I mean, particularly coming off Tonightly, usually it's a case of defund the ABC. So you go, well, that's not my purview. So I'll let that journalist from the Australian just have their say.
And so it doesn't bother you at any level when they're ripping into the jokes?
I mean, I suppose it does, but at the same time, it's like that reasoning of, they're extreme opinions, I suppose. So,
yeah.
But I would definitely kind of, take on, considered opinions, and also, and we'll, happily discuss, jokes and the like with people who have a certain point of view, whether they think it's, this is offensive or this is inappropriate, and definitely make, more often than not, there's definitely a argument to be made for why the joke was worth telling in the first place.
Okay. And back to the feedback, do you prefer immediate feedback, or do you prefer, I guess, the feedback we're talking about now? Which environment do you prefer? Well,
I mean, particularly in the comedy world, the immediate feedback is just like did people laugh, I mean, sometimes it's funny, like there'll be like some debate about, there's a comic who made a joke at a comedy club and it's causing outrage and offence, and then you watch the footage of it and go, people laughed at it, therefore that's a good joke.
Yeah.
It's just by the fact also that, that joke was intended for the people in that room at that moment. It wasn't intended for me to watch on YouTube 3 days later on the other side of the world. But yeah, so the immediate feedback is, they laughed? Yeah, they laughed. Okay, cool. Did they not laugh? Oh, okay. Maybe try a different joke.
Has there been a time when perhaps you received some more extreme negative feedback where that actually impacted you quite negatively?
Well, I mean, if you go from the things, discussions of Tonightly, we did get referred to the broadcasting community, what do you call it, ACMA, the broadcasting standards, I suppose. We did get referred to that, and they had an investigation into whether we actually should have made the joke. So I suppose we were complained about by the government at the time. So I suppose that is significant criticism of the joke. But also at the same time, I think we wore it as a bit of a badge of honour. And then I think when they released I'm going to drop the C word here, but I think, I won't have to, but I think when they released the findings, I think that was about a 32-page document. And I think the C word appeared in it about 57 times. So I think we were quite happy about that.
So you can just laugh it off. It's not that serious? Is that kind of the answer?
Look, I mean, it's serious to be kind of, that's not the kind of thing you want to, that's not the kind of thing you go in to try and do, and that's in no way an intention. And yeah, sometimes things get carried, and there are obviously going to be cases in life where, things get referred to that board quite a bit. But yeah, no, you'd be an absolute idiot if you kind of went into any kind of gig thinking, that was an ambition.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, it just kind of turns out that it's kind of funny because it's Corey Bernardi involved.
Okay.
but yeah, no, you'd be foolish and reckless if you kind of went into any kind of gig thinking that was something you wanted to do regularly.
I'm interested to hear about some of your biggest challenges and perhaps low points during your career.
Sure. Well, I mean, if anything you want to talk about, like in the last 2 weeks, like, Tonightly got taken off just by the fact, now you could argue kind of, did we fail, did we succeed? But we're kind of show that, that could possibly have gone for years and years and years. And we're taken off after 10 months? So 160 episodes. It was an attempt at a 5 nights a week comedy shows, and we got taken off air now. Michelle Guthrie has now been fired from the ABC. Now, I'm not saying the two are linked. That's a different thing. But yeah, I mean, if anything, that you can deem that as a failure. You can deem it as two ways. You can deem it as a great success in that the fact we actually did it for 160 episodes and managed to make half hour of comedy each night. I mean, some would say 15 minutes of comedy some nights. But not me. But also at the same time, that was also a show that it was the kind of thing that could just have gone on and on and on and on and hasn't. So yeah, so that definitely that is a failure at some level.
You're overall proud of what you achieved on the show?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we did some amazing things. And then also when we got the announcement about 3 weeks out from the end that we weren't coming back, and it's funny, people I think Tom Ballard made the point on the final episode. He said, people said we got good once we got 5. No, no, we were good from the start. And then it just happened. We got lucky by the fact that there were things like leadership spills and the like. We actually had some news to talk about. Because that's the thing about American, daily shows and the like. Oh, American politics. You get something to talk about every 5 seconds. Australian politics.
There's always something on.
People aren't so familiar with who the leader of the opposition is. So, but yeah, no, I think we did some amazing stuff.
And what was the feeling like amongst the team and yourself when you received that news?
I'll tell you what, because I was saying before, I hadn't worked on a show where I've been yanked off the air after 3 episodes, and I actually haven't worked on a show where we've actually been told by management that we've been yanked off. Okay. Well, sorry, I prefer not renewed as opposed to axed. It's just very funny. They say, "Do I axed? Do I axed?" Like, no, we just reached the end of the series. But yeah, that was the first time. So they took us into a meeting, I think about 9:30 in the morning, and kind of sat us around. I think a few people had been told the night before. And one thing was that I had been at the ABC apart from about 3 hours where I'd come home and got changed and had a shower. I'd been at the ABC for about 72 hours. And so wow. I was sitting there on the corner, just praying for the sweet release of death. So when the executive kind of told us the announcement, I was like, I have no feelings. I can't even think right now. But then over the next few weeks, I began to get more annoyed. And, it's all budgets and it's all this kind of stuff and ratings and all that kind of jazz. And yes, but I was annoyed. And also by the fact that, it was a cracking team of people. Cracking team of people who are going to go on and do many wonderful things. You can't argue that anyone in that room, whether it be on-camera talent or producers or editors or shooters, are going to go and make extraordinary things.
Awesome. And now that it's a bit fresh, how do you kind of bounce back and overcome those, I guess, disappointing feelings?
Well, I actually haven't had too much. Yeah, that's the thing. I haven't had too much time to do it because they did tell us we still had 3 weeks to go, and so it was like, we got to make the show for 3 more weeks. And so you didn't actually have too many moments to kind of think about things. And then once it finished, I still had another show I was working on that just wrapped up on last Tuesday, yeah. And then there's just a few little bits and pieces of work as well that kind of, came my way. And so I actually haven't had too much time to think about it. And so I'm still actually, I reckon, in a state of trying to work out that kind of stuff and also just trying to find a bit of time to sit down. I feel like I'm jet lagged. That's what I feel like. I feel like I'm jet lagged. And,
so that's just because you're very busy?
Yeah, and so I kind of feel like I need to kind of diffuse a bit. I need to go away. Wish I'd go away somewhere. Sit on a beach. No, I don't like beaches. I'll sit in my room and sleep for a while. But that's a genuine feel to me. I feel like I'm kind of a bit jet lagged and I'm still on a treadmill, if that makes sense.
Yep. Have you experienced moments of burnout?
This one particularly tonightly, but yes, definitely. There are, that's definitely one thing in kind of in comedy world, by the fact that you can kind of almost do kind of the same thing a bit too much. And so you eventually just kind of run out of ideas, or you go, oh, we've done that. I've heard of people who've, worked on, say, The Daily Show for 15 years, or people have, worked on those, Tonight shows for, 20 years. And you go, how the hell have you done that for 20 years? How do you come in every day and how do you have a different take? Or, a take that you haven't used, 15 times already, on a particular topic. Yeah. So, definitely going to burn out. Yeah. I think it's probably step away for a while. Yeah. Just take a break. If someone said to me, come and do a news show, tomorrow, I'd be like, what? Cause, so I think you need, just find ways to kind of freshen up, and then maybe that is try a different thing. It's like doing a particular type of stand-up or something, but, if you're kind of just doing the one note for years and years, then you kind of maybe try something different and evolve maybe a little bit.
Yep. I understand that. Regarding your failures, do you kind of view it like a wardrobe malfunction, that it's okay never to think about again, or do some of them stay with you? I know we've talked about this a little bit.
Yeah, sure. I think it's the kind of case of moving on. Yeah, I don't think it's a case of forgetting about things, but also you learn different things in each different job as well. Like, I reckon with, Tonightly, if I kind of wanted into like a daily thing again, like you go, oh, piss, like, I know how to do that. But also at the same time, I think there would be, you kind of learn bits and pieces from each gig, each job, or each stand-up gig. And you can bring those into new scenarios. So, I remember there was one comic who, I can't remember, it was almost like a checklist. It's like a checklist of about 40 things or something that they wanted for the venue. And they were just simple things like, don't play the piano, or, I don't know, turn off the arcade game in the corner. And it was kind of interesting, but it was a case of like, all of these things have happened at a gig, and they've taken the attention away, and they cause distraction. And it's like, a bit like a writer of, have the blue M&Ms or something. And it was just a case of kind of that attention to detail that they're like, oh yeah, no, this has happened at gigs, and I know that they ruin the gig. So it's just a simple way to make sure these diversions weren't there. It's like doing a corporate gig or something, and it's like, don't have them eating while you're on, because you're not going to laugh if you got a mouthful of chicken.
You mentioned earlier that you've experienced some tough lessons. I guess, what's the hardest lesson that you've had to learn throughout your comedy career?
That is a really good question. That is a very good question. I suppose the kind of thing is just kind of keep going. And I suppose that's the early days as well, in terms of like, it's one of those things where, you're just going to get better at it as you keep going, and you'll find this, you find this in your own stuff doing stand-up. But yeah, I suppose the kind of thing, it's not a sprint either, too.
Okay.
That's another thing as well. If you want to kind of keep going and doing it for a while, it's not 100 meters, it's a marathon. And I think that's important for people to remember as well. And I try to remember that, even though I may not succeed in remembering that. But yes.
Was that kind of the intention earlier on, about getting somewhere very quickly?
Oh, no, I've never been like a super duper career guy, I've never been a kind of schmoozer, or a kind of, what about Mia? I know in a way I feel like it might be to a detriment as well, by the fact that I'm kind of I'm not a whinger, or not a, like I said before, what about Mia? It's just a phrase I've just invented, even slightly to my detriment. But again, also it's the thing of, it's a case of building a longer term thing, as opposed to just, doing something once early on and then, that's it.
When you put creative content out there to the public, whether it's performing on stage or writing content, what emotions spring to mind?
I hope that's okay. It's actually more, it probably is a case of that. And, and I'll be better next time. That would be more my thing. Yeah, I hope that's okay. Yeah. And, we'll give it another crack tomorrow.
Okay. Have you ever walked off a show feeling like you've killed it, but the feedback wasn't as great?
I mean, the only way you can kind of get that is maybe from the audience or like, you can walk up and you feel like you've done a great gig, and then, maybe someone in the crowd says something, but at the same time, audiences will say the most hilarious things or, the oldest, strangest things as well.
No.
What was another one? There was one years ago, and I will say the C word here, but I was standing at a gig, and I think a bloke came up and said to me, I was a funny fucker. And he's going, but mate, it's the other guy. And he's going to the other guys, but mate, you're a funny cunt. And I was like, no, I wish I was a funny cunt. That sounded like a greater compliment. But yeah, I mean, the audience will always say kind of hilarious thing. I mean, there was one time doing a gig, and it's on a comedy festival roadshow. This is years and years ago, and I just wasn't doing very well, and I could hear a guy in about the fifth row, and he just turned to his mate, and he's like, "Oh, get off the stage." And I agreed with him, and I was like, "Yeah, no, like, I don't think he expected to be heard, but I could hear him, and I was like, "Yep, okay, I will," because yeah, I'm not doing well right now.
And you just went off right there and then?
Oh, it was about a minute afterwards, but I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to wrap this up because there's no point keeping these people in a hostage situation."
And what was the mindset like when you walked off?
I think the next day everyone went out on for like a trip in the countryside. I had a look around, and I think I stayed in my hotel room and probably got KFC.
Oh. What did you order?
A shame 8.
Sorry?
A shame 8.
But you bounced back.
Yeah. Yes. And the gigs always after that is always better.
Oh, great. Has comedy or creative arts impacted how you live your life? Has it changed? Yep.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. I mean, I'm currently living in Sydney at the minute. In terms of, like, I'm from Melbourne. I've been in Sydney here for about 11 months now. So, I've had to kind of uplift my life from Melbourne. And I've done that a couple of times now. Like, I've kind of put things in storage a couple of times and moved from Melbourne to Sydney. I don't really have a time frame of when I might head back or if I will head back. But yeah, even little things like that, you kind of got to, lift your life up, and, you're away from family and the like. And, I've got friends up in Sydney, obviously, but there are different friends back in Melbourne, so you don't see people. And then just also and yeah, I think there's also I suppose an unknown element, I suppose. So, I was lucky enough to have a nice paid gig for, up to 11 months, and, those gigs aren't around too often. So I'll try and find out where the next one is.
And has it changed how you view yourself as a person, comedy?
I don't laugh as much as I did. I find myself at the gigs, and I'll be at read-throughs and scripts and stuff, and everyone will be laughing, and I'll be like, that's very funny. That's very funny. So yeah, I mean, one thing you find the more you do comedy is that you laugh less, which is quite a weird thing.
So do you cherish the moments when you laugh?
I do, actually. I must say, I notice actually even when I'm like watching stand-up or watching a show or something, and I find myself laughing a lot, I'm like, oh, this must be really good because I'm laughing heaps.
Is the reason for that you're very well involved in comedy, so you know what works and what doesn't work?
Yes, and you can see things coming.
Okay. So comedy's become a bit predictable for you?
Not predictable, but at the same time you've seen a whole bunch of different things. And then also it's that thing of, you like jokes with a bit of a harder edge, I suppose. A bunch of comics sitting around the back green room shooting the shit will probably say some of the most offensive things you've ever heard in your entire life, and will be rolling around on the ground laughing. And now I could say the same thing to, polite company, and they would think I'm the worst person on earth. I actually remember going to a wedding and making a joke with a mate, that, I think I'd made with other comic mates, and, I got absolutely nothing from him, and he said to me, he said, "You're better than that." I had to explain. I was like, "No, but with my comedian friends, that was really funny." He's like, nah.
Oh, wow. Other artists have told me that these are some of the emotions that run through their mind, whether it's lack of confidence or anxiety, shame, loss of courage, embarrassment, or fear of failure, just to, I guess, name a few. But in some cases, they use these negative emotions to produce better material.
Yeah.
Do you share these experiences?
Yeah, I reckon. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. I think fear of failure is a big one. No, maybe not as strong, maybe half of that. But I think it's, no, that's not right. No, so this is one of these kind of industries where you kind of got to bet on yourself. I do find that I don't kind of bet on myself enough, which is one thing I need to get better. And just by the fact where you go, no, I'm going to take this path for a while and I'm going to trust myself and hope it works out. And I find that I often, defer from that and I go, no, I'll take the safe route. And I go, fuck man, what if I didn't? And I'm interested to find out if I do decide, which probably is in the next little period of if I do kind of, take the safe route or bet on myself.
How do you feel when you don't take the safe route?
I kind of get annoyed at myself but yeah, it's that kind of thing where I go, okay, well, you get your money in the bank and all that kind of jazz and you go, yeah, it's perfectly nice living. And then you kind of, I find sometimes in this world you can look around and the grass can sometimes always be greener and you go, what's that person doing? And but then other times I'm going like, that person kind of seems to be doing what I want to do. But I'm like, I don't know how they make money and how they pay the rent. And so there are kind of things like that. And yeah, if you feel like the grass is greener, so that kind of thing, struggle with, I suppose.
What do your family or close friends think about your decision to be a professional performer?
Yeah, I think I've never had any kind of grief from family or anything like that, which I think has been a good thing. I know some people whose family are like, get a real job. But definitely with my parents and brother and sister and like they've never had any issues with that kind of stuff. And and my nephew and nieces have their head around it slightly. They know I'm a comedian and they can see me on YouTube and then they kind of tell me not to swear.
So everyone, were your parents in particular quite supportive?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. No, definitely.
And they didn't push you towards anything else? Like, Michael, what about teaching or?
No, they never really did. No. I think they were the same thing. Like, they were aware they were kind of trying to work out what I wanted to do. I mean, I did very well in the VCA. I could have done anything. They never kind of, definitely didn't, try to direct me into anything.
That's great to hear. And did they impact your decision to be a comedian or any of them in like creative arts field?
No. No, I think it's a bit of I don't think there'd be anyone in the family who'd be kind of any kind of creative arts. I'm trying to think even back in the day. There seemed to be a lot of people kind of who worked in tax offices and so I think I'm a bit of a black sheep, I suppose.
Okay. Who is the funniest person that you know?
That's a very good question. Funniest person that I know. I would offend a lot of people, I think, if I answer that question. Because they'd be like, what about me? I don't know. I think everyone's kind of fun. There are lots of people that are funny in their own way. I'll tell you what, my niece's one is very funny. She's quite hilarious. Actually, that's an inoffensive answer. I'll say my niece, but she is quite hilarious. And not in just like, she's a kid and she said something silly. Like she, will genuinely, make jokes, which I like a lot.
Do you ever try and steal her material?
Not quite. The only story I've got out of them, so I've got to do on stand-up, is that my brother-in-law, he was hanging out with my nephew, he was about 11 at the time, and I said they were in a cafe, and he said there's a very attractive girl, kind of sitting at the table next to him, and he said that my nephew, he kind of was whispering, going, Dad, look at her, and he was kind of looked around, he's like, oh, not a little boy, he's all grown up, he's checking out women, and he's going, Dad, she's got an iPhone 10. And he was like, he's still a little boy. I'm so happy. He's just checking out the phone.
And do you actually find that you learn from your niece, like comedy-wise?
I can't say I learned, just for hilarity. Yeah. No, they're not giving me tips on structure.
What is the funniest or most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you on or off stage?
Let me think. I tell you the last time I remember that I actually laughed so hard that I kind of nearly ran out of air. And I do a footy podcast, an AFL podcast with a friend of mine, and there's two other mates, Will Anderson and Charlie Clausen. We did a live show post grand final on the Sunday, which is the grand final is this Saturday, so we're doing one this Sunday as well. So last year's show we were just making fun of our friend Charlie Clausen, whose team St Kilda's only won one premiership, and so we were making fun of that and kind of doing a mock radio call of a grand final 50 years ago. And I over the recording of that, and I've listened to it a few times, and yeah, that is one time that I was laughing in a manner that I did not recognize. It didn't sound like my laugh because I was about to pass out. So that would be the last time I kind of killed myself.
Oh, great. What keeps you motivated and creative?
Just the desire to get better. Yeah, as I said earlier, I think, I'll keep doing stand-up until I get good at it.
Oh, you don't feel you're good at it now?
Well, I think there's that's kind of a phrase for it, but it's that thing of, just kind of getting better and better and better and better.
Studies have shown that the 5 people you spend the most time with play a crucial role in your life. Would you say this is true for you?
Yeah, I reckon. I mean, even if you come, family is always the kind of thing for me, and where it's come from. And so let me think, there are 4 of them. So let's add another one. The Lord and Saviour Jesus Christ, he can be my 5th. But, I think everything kind of comes from your family. So yeah, there's those 4 people. Let's add Jesus to that. But yeah, definitely they've influenced me the most.
And outside of family, do you choose to surround yourself with certain people?
I think I try to choose to surround myself with people who aren't into themselves and who, I think, what did Oprah say? Toxic friends. That just kind of people who are probably upbeat. Okay.
Do you have any experiences with negative people?
I'll
rephrase that. We all do.
No, definitely. And there are just people I've removed myself from their life. I've removed them from my life just by the fact they go, I can't handle this anymore. Their girlfriend I got at the minute, and one thing I do particularly admire about her is that she laughs heaps and is so upbeat. She asked for assistance at a tourism thing yesterday, and they handed her a pamphlet, and she said, "You're the best." And I was like, "That's pretty remarkable." Someone's handed you a pamphlet, and you're going, "You're the best." I'm like, "That's cool."
And have you encountered people like online trolls who try and bring you down, or anyone that's anti-Michael?
No, I think I'm kind of lucky in that regard. If anything, on the footy podcast that I do, might cut some flack because I'm very vocal about being a Hawthorn supporter. But no, I've been lucky in that regard. Yeah, and so you get things like that. But no, definitely I haven't. And I also haven't done anything kind of stupid enough to kind of get doxxed by anyone. It's heck, man, straight white male. It's the thing in these online worlds where, there are some people kind of people will come and attack them for anything other than what they actually said. And it's race, religion, sex, sexual orientation. So yeah, I'm blessed in that regard. What are you going to come at me with? You've controlled governments for hundreds and hundreds of years. Oh, okay, thanks, mate.
Yeah, you personally have.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for young aspiring comedians, or even those who want to try something different or new, or outside the box?
For sure, I'd say the thing is, most of the things in life is actually just do it. I mean, particularly in comedy, it's just kind of, if you want to do it, then just go and do it. And also for, comics like yourself, I'd recommend, starting your own night. So find a pub somewhere that you can have comedy night on a Tuesday or whatever, charge $5 and run it yourself and host it yourself. So that way you get stage time and no one can tell you get off stage. So yeah, one of the things, if you want to do it, comedy is literally one of those, professions where you just do it as opposed to just sit around and think about it. You don't have to give a CV to anyone. You don't have to, go for a job interview. You just do it.
Okay. If you could go back into a time when you first started out on your comedy career, what advice would you give yourself?
I think I'd probably do a bit less faff in terms of have a bit more to think about what I was going to say or what I was going to talk about. So
Yep.
I think initially my comedy was a bit goofy, I think. And so I think I'd kind of not do that as such. I'm not saying like physical or anything like that. I'm not joking. But yeah, I think I probably have a bit more to think about what I wanted to say or what the intent was behind the jokes.
Actually, I have one more question for you. How have you found success? Is it like the movies where you're adored by everyone and everyone comes to rally towards you? You're recognized on the street. You get free meals.
Oh God, no. No. I remember one time I was on a show and there was a lady at a bottle shop and I just went in there just near I lived near it and she wanted like autographs and people of the show and stuff. I was like, yeah, sure. So I got that for her kids or whatever. And then she gave me like, the 6-pack for free or something. And then the next time I went in there, she kind of gave me like, a beer or something for free. And then I was like, oh, if I go back there, like there's this weird expectation. Am I going to get stuff for free? Am I not going to get stuff for free? So I stopped going there. I was like, I can't go back into that shop because it's going to get weird.
So do you embrace success?
They can give me free grog. Look, success. What is success? I find that interesting. Some people would say it's, just earning a living full time doing it or, not having any other job to back it up. So I would personally say I'm kind of still half looking for success if that's true. But again, that comes back to kind of, feeling confident enough that I was, good enough.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael.
No dramas, man.
Michael has the ability to see the positives in all aspects of his work and doesn't allow himself to be bogged down by any negativity. He also raises a good point about complacency and how it's very easy to be trapped by it. He recommends that if you want to try something, just do it. He also talks about how comedy is the industry that you really need to be resilient and support yourself, which is great advice not only for people in the comedy industry. One piece of advice that struck with me is his quote, "Comedy is not a short sprint, it's a marathon." To paraphrase, to be successful, we need to be in it for the long haul and acknowledge the little steps along the way. So what's stopping you from achieving your goals? Thank you for listening to the Funny and Failure podcast, exploring the deeper side of comedy.